I enjoy some of the old and I enjoy the new, and if I can find a balance between it, that's where I find my satisfaction.
Hey guys, so I'm back with the second installment of my Digital Artefact, the ever-important beta version. So basically, as expressed in my initial pitch, I was to be conducting a podcast that would investigate the sport of surfing, not necessarily the sport itself, but the culture that surrounds it and its future impact. So such as investigating business, social media, and future technologies, for example. Taking a deep dive into these topics and giving my opinion on them. I was fortunate enough to bring in a co-host to work on this show with me, Nicholas Isaacson, who is heavily invested in the surfing community as well as being a videographer, so I felt that he was quite a good source in this topic. The combination of both of us allowed for a better conversation to be had and had furthered our points initially that we had tried to make.
I know when you're tired or, you're hungover or whatever, and you can just chuck on Instagram and go to your favourite surfer's Instagram and you have 20 30-second clips of them ripping all these different waves to enjoy.
So the format in which the podcast was to be conducted was actually quite fun and interesting. An idea gathered through my in-depth scrolls through social media and the meme world was a game called Don't Get Me Started, in which you would present each other with a topic and the participant would go on an angry tirade about the said topic. I was able to combine this idea with something I find myself saying a lot, which is that's the best thing since sliced bread. The end result, Don't Get Me Started on Sliced Bread, was the name of the podcast.
Don't Get Me Started on Sliced Bread, a new podcast with Connor Lennon, surf journalist, and Nicholas Isaacson, revered filmmaker. Tune in.
This format allowed a far more amusing way to approach this podcast. It gave us a chance to be cynical, which really came incredibly easy to us.
It is so blatantly hedonistic and minimal effort, and I love it.
However, through the eyes of a communications student, I was able to realise the benefits of what I was talking about, and even though it may be controversial to a surfer's core. So in regards to the feedback from the pitch, which was actually incredibly useful, specifically one of the comments that I had, which discussed technologies such as virtual reality and other things like that. This stemmed from the individual's point of access to the sport. With technology growing so rapidly around the world and countries still remaining landlocked, the introduction of said technologies to benefit these individuals was truly amazing. So I was able to investigate that more. In one of my podcasts, I investigated wave pool technologies, which is an absolute something that's on the rise and it's having a massive impact on surfing. And I feel countries that had never had the opportunity to have access to anything to do with the ocean are now being given that chance. So the idea of access can be furthered in future podcasts that I'm going to conduct in regards to virtual reality and the way things are filmed as well in another one. So it's one thing playing a game on a phone or a handheld device. Being actually immersed in the technology is something that is increasingly becoming more involved within the sport. The best platform to be uploading my podcast was on Soundcloud, as it was user-friendly and incredibly easy to manage. Though my biggest issues in learning have been with creating the podcast on GarageBand, as it is something I had never really done before. However, over time I did feel like they became better, and the podcasts were able to speak for themselves with the content that was within. For the final installments of the podcast, I want to investigate further into the technologies, such as the virtual reality that I touched on earlier, and I have plans to do the final installment in a podcast/video format to create content across more platforms that I know Nicholas is very keen to be a part of as well.